Well, why don't we jump right into it? And you can start out by telling us who you are, where you are, and how we know each other.
My name is Anthony Mulcahy. I'm a photographer, originally from Ireland, but I live here in New Jersey in the United States. And I believe we know each other from Newport, but did we meet before that in York, in Pennsylvania?
I don't know if we ever met in Pennsylvania. I think that we first met at Newport, but I didn't know until after I had been following you for a while and sort of in the same circle of people. You married one of my best friend's neighbors from here in York.
I believe so, yeah.
And that blew my mind. I love those small world moments.
I don't know if I ever met you down there, but we've been, we spoke one night maybe at the Strand Capitol when Eva with Willie Watson.
Yes.
That's
Man, a lot of good shows there.
Yeah.
Well, tell us what you do.
So I guess been a live music photographer for about 4 years, and I've worked for a bunch of different publications. In more recent times, shot for a bunch of bands directly, covered the likes of the Newport Folk Festival, bits and pieces. It's generally kind of whatever kind of comes my way. As long as it tickles my fancy, I'll do it, so it's the music first, and then I'll jump in and take some photographs. So that's the plan anyway.
And now that you say that, I think most of my favorite music photographers, that's sort of their approach too, and that comes through in the photos. You can tell that they love the music they're shooting.
Yeah, I mean, when I started out taking pictures in like 2016, and for the first year and a half, I photographed anything and everybody that was on a stage, even though I would predominantly be like a folk music kind of, that would be my thing, but I more or less shot everything because I needed to obviously figure out my cameras and get used to what I was doing because it was new to me. But once I kind of got that honed in a little bit, I started being a little bit more choosy about what I did. So I really started to follow certain styles, certain acts, and would do anything in my power to get a photo pass to get into some of these venues to take some photos. So. Yeah.
And I'm so glad because I really enjoyed watching the photos that you post following you on Instagram.
Thank you.
And you make music too, right?
I have been playing music for over 20 years, but I kind of put a stop to it about 5 years ago, maybe. My own music, I put a stop to it about 5 years ago. And then I met Rachel Stern, who is the other half of this duo that we do, Those Sensible Shoes. And we made a record in 2016, I think. And we actively do that. In other words, if we're asked to do gigs, which we do, we've done quite a few gigs in the last 12 months. But again, it's like when I started taking photographs, that kind of took over for me as a way to, I suppose, express myself. I'm not going to say, I wasn't very good at songwriting, but Rachel is certainly a much better songwriter, and I really enjoyed performing her songs with her, if that makes any sense. So I've just felt that was a better way to approach that. I'd played too long myself. Anyone who's creative is looking for a way to express themselves. And I was kind of getting down the road with the music, but once I started taking pictures, it was just a completely different ball game altogether. So I found I was just creatively way better at expressing myself with a camera than what I ever was with a guitar.
What have you been listening to while we're all stuck at home?
Pine Grove, literally Pine Grove, the new record, Marigold. I've been listening to that for several weeks. I shoot up at the Levon Helm Studios, and I saw them live up there in January. I think it was the night that the day the album came out. So I've been a fan of theirs for a good number of years, but this new record is their best offering. So I've been listening to a lot of that, and I've been listening to a lot of John Prine in the last, 2 or 3 weeks, and closely his health, and hopefully he pulls through. And Fiona's been updating, his wife has been updating on social media here for the past couple of days. So I definitely went down a rabbit hole of all of his records in the last 4 or 5 days. And
me too. I have my John Prine prayer candle here too. St. John Prine.
That's really cool. So yeah, I've been doing John, and then my regulars then, which be His Golden Messenger, Raylan Baxter, the likes of that. So It's kind of, once I start listening to something, I kind of stay with one thing for a long time to try and get my head around what it is that is really going on. I don't know. I don't skim over records when I'm listening to something. I'm multiple listens. So
Me too.
yeah.
Me too. I have some friends that have joked they've been to dinner at my house, not since all this started, but came to dinner at my house with a couple months in between, and the same record was playing when they came in. And they said, "Have you taken this John Paul White record off the turntable, or have you been listening to it the whole time?" And that's not far from the truth.
Yeah.
I tend to listen over and over and really try to absorb them as well.
Yeah. Same.
What about live streams? Have you gotten to hear many of the stream performances that people are doing?
Yes, it's difficult. I find it difficult. It's you know, everybody's in a really tough position with this right now. I mean, I was out in Seattle for a couple of days with the Ballroom Thieves, and I left them in Bend, Oregon, and the rest of their tour. I think they got to finish all but one show. And when I left them, they were extremely nervous. It was like they played at the Crocodile in Seattle, and Seattle was like the epicenter of all that was going on at the time. And everybody was really worried. This was on the 1st of March or 2nd of March, and everybody was really worried about it. And I was, they sold out that night and everybody turned up. But it just hadn't kind of kicked in yet with how serious this whole situation was going to become. And they were very nervous. I mean, they had gigs booked out until June or July. They were going out on tour with Camp, but they had their own East Coast, and they had that whole tour. They were going to be here like up until the end of May, and then they were going out with Camp, and like everything is cancelled. So I mean, obviously the mood at those gigs, even though they knew that it was coming down to this being a crunch in the end, and that stuff was going to drastically change. And the night that I left them in Bend, Oregon, I drove back up to Seattle and did a show with the Lone Bellow in the Neptune Theater in Seattle, and that's 1,000 capacity. And then this was like 4 or 5 days since the Ballroom Thieves had been in Seattle, and they had sold the show out, but not a fifth of those tickets turned up.
Wow.
It was such a pity, because the Lone Bellow are incredible, absolutely incredible, and they out the venue 1,000 tickets, and it was a very sparse room, because at that point people started to realize, oh shit, this is very, very serious. So they only did another one show, I think. Beyond that, I think they played in Eugene, Oregon. Or sorry, they played in Portland at I can't think of the name of the venue. They played in Portland, and then they were going to be going down to play at Pappy and Harriet's, which is in California.
On my venue bucket list.
Yeah, I've been there. So they played there. Or sorry, they were supposed to play there, and that's when they cancelled the shows. So from then on, they essentially lost the rest of their tour. So everybody is kind of panicking right now, and everybody's trying to figure out, well, what's the best way to do this and approach this. And of course they have this medium here with Instagram Live and Facebook Live. I don't want to say it's not the same, because we all know it's not the same. It's of course not the same thing, and everybody's trying to find a way to not be singing into their phone. Will we set up a little PA in the room and hook up a mic to the phone or whatever? So I still think that there's a lot of that trying to get kind of figured out. People are just kind of doing it because, I don't mean that they're doing it because they can't do their own shows, and they're trying to find a way to bridge the gap. And it's just extremely difficult. And it's very hard to tell how, a lot of people are tuning in and people are donating. And, I signed up to a bunch of Patreons for people so that they can continue on month to month, because this is a thing right now. But like any sort of a fad or anything, it's going to, at some point, there's going to be a curve with this as well.
Yeah.
It's going to fall off, and people are like, oh, I'm so sick of watching these Facebook Live or these Instagram Live things. It's going to become a thing for a certain amount of time, and then so it's hard. It's very hard to tell, but I applaud the venues for, like, Rock would have been doing a thing. I see Matt Susich there. Matt just did a performance there maybe 2 nights ago or last, I can't remember. Niall Connolly has done it, and loads of my friends and stuff, and people I don't know that I've tuned in for as well. And they're doing like a 50-50 split between the artists and the venues. And that's amazing, but it's all very, very difficult. And of course, every musician is trying to do it, and every musician is trying to find their own little you know, everyone has the fans, everyone has several thousand people on Facebook or Instagram that are following you or whatever, but how many of those are tuning in? And do you want to watch an hour of a show on your phone? Or because I see so I know some couple of people have hooked up their phones or their laptops to their TVs in their houses, and they've watched full live show, and that's progression of it. So you know what I'm saying? Not just sitting watching it on your phone. That's okay, let's get out the laptop, hook it up to the TV, and now we have a 60-inch version of Matt Susic. Or so it's you know, that's the progression of it. I hope it picks up, but I'm also seeing people that are like, I don't know, that's not the same. So it's a really tough situation.
I'm glad that bubble hasn't popped just yet, because right now I feel like that's what's getting me through. And I'm very jealous of the people that can hook it up to their TV, because I don't have a TV, so I'm forced to watch it on my phone. But tonight, there's even, I can't see them all. There's an overlap tonight. I think it's Joe Pug playing Nation of Heat all the way through, and John McCulley doing something with Luck Reunion at the same time. So
there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of that.
And thankfully, when they are doing it on YouTube Live or Facebook Live, it's archived. When we do these on Instagram Live, they go away after 24 hours.
Right.
So that helps a little bit if they're elsewhere, but I don't know. Anyway, it's interesting to watch this evolve and evolve quickly, as you're saying. Oop,
yeah.
Have you frozen? There we go.
Something happened there. You're just happening.
Tell me what you're doing to pass the time where you are.
Well, I was actually working up until like early last week. I work as an electrician, work construction, and we would be deemed essential in New York City. So it's that was difficult because I wasn't really sure how that was going to pan out or play out in the end. And you know, in the evening times, coming home and realizing that at some point I was going to be at home. And I started like digging into looking up old photos. There's a lot of shows that I've been to where if I was turning photos around for a blog, I would have to do it very quickly, you know, in the space of 24 hours or not even. In some cases, I had to shoot a show at 10 o'clock in the night and they wanted photographs the next morning. So usually it's like skimming over pictures, picking out 20 photos or 15 photos and then sending them off. And the reality of it was, if you're doing so much of that it's you're not actually taking an in-depth look at your pictures. So I was going back over old festivals stuff, different shows, and I've come across like some photographs that I was like, oh Jesus Christ, why did I not first time around, you know? And so it's been stuff like that. I've been looking into making some photo booklets and stuff just to keep my mind ticking over, because we could be talking about, you know, several months before anything kicks off again. That's the harsh reality of it. You know, you and I are sitting here with our fingers crossed, hoping for Newport to take place at the end of July, and we don't even want to say it out loud just in case, you know. But I'm the photographer at the Charm City Bluegrass Festival, which was supposed to be taking place in 2 weekends from now, and that was cancelled. Mountain Jam, which was another festival I was booked to do, you know, shoot a couple of acts at, that was cancelled. And then Boston Calling, which I had planned to go to, you know, cancelled. So Governor's Ball, I believe. So it's just a domino effect. And, you know, understandably from the festival point of view, nobody wants to be the festival where there was a COVID-19 outbreak.
Sure.
You know, that's the thing. You have 50,000 people in a you know, in a space or in a field, whatever it is. Nobody wants it to be in 2 months' time there was a massive, you know, coronavirus outbreak at such and such a festival. So nobody needs that. So the err on the side of caution. No, we just postpone it until later in the year, or we cancel it. So some of them are postponed, some of them are cancelled. I don't remember which ones, but like I said, Jay Sweet is still pumping out the acts, and I think they're quietly confident. But the next couple of weeks will certainly tell, you know, what's going to happen.
It's only 121 days till Newport if it goes on as scheduled. That's not much time with all that's going on.
But who's counting?
Me, all day, every day, the whole year.
Very good.
Yeah, it's I'm sort of biting my nails over that one, because you're right. We don't want to see that spike come back because of us gathering together. And I've got really bad asthma. My lungs wouldn't survive an infection from that, so I have to.
Yeah, absolutely. it's scary. It's a very scary it's a very scary situation. And you know, I know quite a few people that have had it and not hospitalized with it, but they're just like, you don't want to get this. Even if you're not hospitalized with it, you just don't want to get this. And you know, it's for you and me as the music, you know, people, we're like, oh my God, it's ruined all these live gigs. But the reality is that it's destroying families across the country as well, you know. So you have to look at it from all different angles, you know. My parents are at home, luckily enough, live in a very rural part of Ireland, you know. They're like 15 or 20 miles from Waterford City. And it's easy to stay kind of cocooned, I guess, out there, you know. And my sister and brother and niece are in Waterford City. But even still, like, it's not a densely populated area. But even still, like, they're struggling in Ireland to try and keep numbers down. And you know, everywhere is the same and everywhere is approaching it differently. But the United States is definitely going to take the biggest hammering from all this, without a doubt. And it's going to affect, you know, economically for everybody across the board for months and months and months from now, you know. So I don't even want to say it because it's making me upset even thinking about it. Forget about my job or whatever. It's just from a music point of view, just knowing that there's so many acts out there and everybody is really heavily promoting their merchandise and really heavily trying to do this, that, you know, to keep things in continuation and keep their fans engaged, whether that's a live show or putting a sale on their website for merch, whatever it is. And everybody's trying to, you know, literally, it's kind of like grasping at straws at this point, just trying to figure out, because nobody has ever come into this situation before, you know. This is a really, really unique. Nobody has the tried and tested way of dealing with a situation like this in the music industry. So I love that Bandcamp did a thing a couple of weeks ago with 100% of their sales going to the artists, you know, and there should be more of that. These are, I mean, won't even talk, but like Spotify, like these guys, you know, why can this not be a thing where you can, you know, make a couple of days, maybe 2 days a month or something, where the stream payout is higher, or whatever.
Where it actually benefits the artists.
For them, like, it's just bullshit, you know. So and you know, the artists are the ones that are putting bread and butter on their plates, and the artists, of course, then are, you know, kicking the can up and down the street trying to figure out how we're going to make this work. So it's an awful situation, and all we can do is hope that this blows over sooner rather than later, and the artists and acts can get back out there. I'm sure everybody's holed up. We're going to hear some phenomenal albums inside the next 12 months. I'm sure everyone's holed up at home right now and saying, right, I'm going to write the records. You know, now I have an opportunity to sit down and write the records. So hopefully there'll be some of that coming through. But you know, it's sad. It's very sad. Like I said, with the Ballroom Thieves, and everyone, it's just a level of dejection that, like, I was just like, I felt so sorry. It felt so bad for everybody, and it's so hard, you know. They're a year planning, you know, a record release, and then they're a year again planning all of these tour dates, and then it comes down to something like this sweeping through and just crushing it, you know.
Well, not only that, they were already having a weird time of it on that tour because they got caught up in that accident with their van a couple weeks before that, right?
They all nearly died 2 days before I met them in Seattle. I met them in Seattle on the Thursday, and on the Sunday prior to it, they were driving west across I-80, and they were just about a half an hour west of Wyoming, and they were driving through a blizzard, and they lost control of their van, and it went down. What saved their lives was that the van went off the road because an 18-wheeler jackknifed behind them, and there was a snowbank which protected them from being hit by this thing. But many, many, many people lost their lives. It was like a 160 car pileup. It didn't begin with them. They were in the middle of all that happened, but they all nearly lost their lives. So they were very shaken when I met them in Seattle on the Thursday, which is 4 days later. So like, they were very lucky their van sustained no injuries. They sustained no injuries. But they were something like 20 hours standing out on the highway, and it was like negative temperatures out there. So it was extremely cold. So they were very lucky to kind of come away from that. But, you know, physically come away from it unhurt, but mentally it definitely took its toll on them, you know, and they were trying to, I mean, they are openly speaking about this. So this isn't something that I'm saying that nobody knows. They openly spoke about this on their own social media. So it was a very, very scary you know, very scary few days for them. And I'm sure, you know, when you move on and start getting into the shows, which they did when they got to, they did a secret show on the Thursday night and they did the Crocodile on the Friday night, and they got into it on the Friday, you know, whereas the Thursday night was a little kind of subdued. I think they were just like, we haven't played a gig in a week, so they were just trying to get a feel for it again. But yeah, once they got going on the Friday and kind of got them that gig underneath them and started to move south, and then the wind taken out of those sails again then 3 days later because of COVID, you know. So it's tough. It's very tough.
Really something. Well, okay, let's do this. Tell me, this is how we're ending all of these. Give me a plug for how we can find out more information about you, and how we can best support you during this time, and also the things that you care about the most.
Okay, well, I have a website, malography.com. There's a link to it here in my in my bio here on Instagram. It's just essentially 4 years of live shows, photographs from just various bands that I've picked out, selection of bands that I've picked out over the last 4 years. And then there's live music photographs, prints there for sale. And I have some landscape stuff. I do some star trail, nighttime stuff, which, you know, I do that in my, let's say, downtime when there's, usually in the summer, when it's festivals at the weekends, but there's kind of not a lot of shows going on during the week because everyone's on the festival schedule. So I like to get out on the weeknights and do that kind of stuff. So those are for sale. And, you know, I've been trying to raise money for different things and not really knowing where is the money best served, you know? So I've had a sale on the website for a couple of days, and we'll continue it for another couple of days. And I'm giving 100% of the profits to the Men's Bowery Mission in New York City. There's a lot of homeless people, a lot of homeless men on the street and women, you know, but, you know, the Bowery Mission are, in my opinion, best set up to take care of these guys, you know. And I've donated money to them a couple of times from different shows just down through the, and it just hit home with me right now, you know, we're complaining, we're confined in our own houses and we're losing our minds. These guys are sleeping on the street. If anybody gets sick, they're done for. You know, they're not going to get medical assistance. They're not going to get that help, you know, and that's unfortunate. And obviously it's stressful knowing that like you're sitting in your own house, apartment, whatever it is, and you have the means to call an ambulance or whatever it is if shit goes down. But these guys, so like I said, 100% of the profits from those sales go to them. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where it's at right now, and I'll keep that going for another couple of days. So that's about it, really.
Wonderful. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. And for those of you who are tuned in, the next one of these, I'm doing these on the hour throughout the day today at 1 o'clock Eastern. Up next, I'll be talking to Christopher Paul Stelling, who's down in Asheville. And then at 2 o'clock, Johnny Fritz, who is somewhere near LA in his leather workshop. He is LA's, premier used house salesman now. So looking forward to talking to them, and it goes on through about 6 p.m. So I hope you'll stick with me. And Anthony, thank you so much.
JJ, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Nice talking to you too.
Christopher, I just missed him a couple of days ago. He was out in the West Coast. I missed him in Portland. So love him, absolutely love him. That's going to be a great conversation. He's a very interesting guy. So looking forward.
Me too. I'm looking forward to that one. All right. Well, thank you so much. You too.
See ya.
Bye-bye.